All right, and welcome back, everyone. Steve Atkinson here with Saddle Hunting Canada. And we have Hailee Daniels joining us today, special Mother's Day week edition featuring Canadian female hunters and archery extraordinaires. Hailee, tell us a little bit about yourself before I start rambling. Say hello and tell us who you are.
Well, I'm the owner of Ontario Archery Supply. I started my own business in 2018. I've worked in the industry now since 2013, so it's been quite a few years now. I was a heating and air technician for a number of years. When my son was born, I decided I did not want to go back to doing that. So started helping out at the local hunting store and kind of just made it a passion of mine. I've had a lot of success because I care deeply about people. So I dedicate myself to people as much as I dedicate myself to hunting. You know, I take it personally with every client that I meet and every interaction that I have with people. And I think that's helped grow my business. So I have a little bit of a following that came with me when I started my own business. So it was like instant success. So that was kind of handy.
Yeah, if you haven't heard of her, guys, if you go on any of the forums, the Canadian Archery forums, if someone's asking for anything, if you notice it's a true ball release or what arrows to get, 5 people will chime in. Talk to Hailee, talk to Hailee, talk to Hailee, talk to Hailee. So if you're looking for something and you're wondering why you keep on missing by 7 inches, don't say it's your shooting form. That's too easy. Talk to Hailee and she'll sell you something to fix that. Right, Hailee?
I will help you make a decision on finding a product that will help you fix it. I don't sell things. I just help make decisions.
Yeah, perfect. That's great. So how did you get involved in archery specifically, and then we'll move into hunting afterwards? Is it something you've done for a long time or?
No, actually. So my husband has been a competitive archer for like decades. He started when he was about 12 years old. So when I met him in 2010 and we started dating in 2011. So he was really picking back up into target archery, 3D target shooting and hunting and stuff when I met him. So obviously I didn't want to be kind of left alone on all the weekends and in the evenings and stuff. So I kind of latched onto it as well. I was, you know, a small game hunter and I had a shotgun and I had a crossbow and stuff, but I'd never really been a dedicated archer before. And I really, really grew a passionate love for all things bow, and just like deer hunting and bear hunting with a compound bow is literally what I live for. Awesome. Aside from chickens, but I mean, it's all on the even plane now. Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's very cool. And then you just, so between that, as you begin yourself, how did you begin to know that you wanted to help people make the decisions on what products to buy? As you said, not sell them stuff, help them make decisions.
I like that. Actually, it kind of happened by accident. So again, I was a heating and air technician before I ever got involved in the archery community. I used to do, you know, furnace installs and service work and stuff like that. So in 2013, I had a little boy. And I couldn't work the 14-hour days anymore and be up at, you know, 1 o'clock in the morning doing service calls and then having to rush home to make sure that he was fed and stuff. So in 2013, in October, the local hunting shop lost their existing technician. So I kind of made an offer and said, hey, if you guys want somebody to run, you know, the bow shop on the weekends, I can come in on the weekend, but the stipulation was I had to bring my son with me. So they agreed, and because they're crazy, and let me bring my son to work with me all weekend. And then after the first couple of months and people realizing that, you know, there was access to a bow technician, we went out, we bought all of our own tools. So we had, you know, real good quality arrow saws and bow presses and vices and all that stuff. Eric is like an encyclopedia when it comes to archery. So, I mean, he can look at your bow from 25 feet away, hear you draw it and tell you what's wrong with it. So it's really been beneficial to me, not only owning a shop, but working in the industry, having him, because I mean, I don't know what something is. I just call him and he can usually diagnose it over the phone. Wow. But yeah, so it went from, you know, them not having much of an archery department at all to us building this massive following of archers. And like we were kind of set up in a 10-foot by 10-foot corner of the store when we first started there. And Saturday mornings, there would be a lineup all through this little shop in Belleville. So finally, the owner had said, you know, I think you guys should move out into the other building we own across the parking lot. It's getting crazy in here. We can't accommodate all these people. And so he had said to me, do you want to try to do this full time? And I said, no. And then we tried to keep up with stuff, you know, kind of picking stuff up part-time and taking it home, but it just didn't work out. So I ended up turning it into a full-time job.
Wow, that's pretty cool. It's amazing sometimes how little steps all of a sudden grow into something big.
Yeah, and it didn't take long. No, it didn't take long, and it really did grow, like I said. And then we really built the archery department there into, you know, we were a stocking bow dealer all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden we had all the components we needed for target arrows, and we just kind of accommodated everyone for everything they needed.
That's very cool. And so what was the difference? You said you were like a small game hunter before. How has your hunting changed, your hunting style changed from going from, you know, shotgun and crossbow to bow? Has it made it harder, more fun? What's that journey been like for you?
I have a problem with obsessing over one particular thing. So the biggest problem for me now is if I find a buck that I want to hunt, I will hunt that buck until he's perished, whether it's by me or by someone else. Yeah. So the very dedicated aspect of you know, bow hunting and archery is, you know, you have to get them in close. So I have not been a bow hunter for a long time. So despite having the shop and despite, you know, everybody recommending the shop and stuff, I am by far no professional when it comes to bow hunting. So like I said, I met Eric in 2011. We started bow hunting together. So I shot a doe in like 2012. It was my first deer, my first ever thing that I ever drew on. And then in 2013, I met my first target buck. So I had like so many terrible run-ins with this deer, and I made so many mistakes over 5 years of hunting that deer. You know, I wounded him once, I missed him once, my release went off early once, like 3 consecutive years in a row. And everybody was like, you put more arrows in that deer than any other deer on the planet has ever seen. But for me, it was a dedication factor. I wanted that deer to be my first deer, right? So I lost sleep. I cried. I, you know, lost friends because I would cancel on events and stuff because I had to be out in the woods to find this deer. So it's definitely changed hunting in that, you know, it's just such an obsession when you find something that you want to dedicate yourself to, and it takes every waking moment that you have to find them and to pattern them and to get, you know, connected with them. So I did manage to shoot Krabby in 2015. So somehow, somehow over the years and with all the mistakes and with all the issues that I had and actually making, you know, a consistent decision on that deer, I did manage to harvest him. So since then, I've been a little bit more lax in my hunting style because, like I said, we were like both of us. Eric would be out hunting and he'd text me and say, "Your stupid deer's here." So he also couldn't harvest anything because he refused to shoot that deer because I had so much into it. So it affected a lot of people for like 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's, I find the same thing is that bow hunters, we tend to be obsessive very easily because obviously any type of hunting, it's challenging. And I mean, the reason that these wild animals are still alive is because they've outsmarted you and I so far, and you know, they've kept away from coyotes or whatever. But there's just something about doing it with a bow. I know myself this morning, I was out turkey hunting with my son and I missed the turkey, totally my fault with the bow. With a shotgun, it was easy, but we had moved around from the left side of the woods because we heard him on the east side, I guess. We had moved around and tucked in, and I went back in the woods about 10 yards so we'd have some cover. And out about half an hour later, out comes this Tom, and I saw him, and I had ranged where 20 yards would be for in the field. But I was back in the woods 10 yards, so he came out And I was thinking, because, haven't hunted since, shot something since deer season. Okay, aim about 1.5 inches low, because it's going to drop a bit. Turkeys don't drop, they stand up when they hear a noise, by the way. And so between aiming 1.5 inches low, exactly. So between me being 10 yards too far back, him standing up and me aiming 1 inch low, I breezed right underneath him. He just stood up, looked both ways, and took off. And honestly, I mean, it still would have been fun to shoot him with a shotgun, but I have more fun even now telling that story of how things happened and how we had to tuck in and cover, and I had to wait till his head went behind a tree before I could bring up my bow and draw. I had to just stand there like this for 30 seconds. It adds to the fun. I mean, most people must think we're crazy because, like, well, you could have just sat there with a shotgun and gone boom, and there you go, morning's over. But I don't know.
And I mean, that's lots of fun too. I like going out and I like, doing it once in one shot. But yeah. I mean, where's the story of that?
Exactly. So yeah, we can be excessive. Part of what we want to do this week is highlight women in the outdoors and women in areas like archery. Have you found that there's been any benefits or any challenges being a woman in an outdoors industry? Predominantly, I mean, it's mostly guys, really, right? I mean, numbers wise. Have you found that's been any challenge? Or been
absolutely. So I come from a male-dominated trade, so I have a lot of experience being, immersed in a workplace with men. I have a pretty lax personality when it comes to, teasing and stuff like that. So I've always really gotten along with my coworkers. There has been the odd event where I've had people walk in the store, particularly older men that have come in and, where's the bow tech? And I'm like, it's me. And they're like, oh, so your husband doesn't work here? And I'm like, no. And, most people are pretty good about it. Most people get over it. I've had the odd fellow that I've sold something to that I get a call from a very angry wife later on that says, you just manipulated my husband into buying a bow because you are flamboyant and all over the place. And I mean, some people are going to react to people differently, no matter who you are and no matter what trade or what your workplace is like. So take it with a grain of salt. And there's way more people that outweigh the bad people than good people. So I can't even really recount how many bad people, because there's so many good interactions.
That's good. That's great. Myself, I have 4 kids, 3 daughters, and I really appreciate people like yourself who, because there can be a bit of a, not stigma is that the word, but I think it's more work for women to get into archery and the outdoors than it is for guys. It's like if a woman wants to.
I will touch on that.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I will touch on that. Yeah, like the first gun that I wanted to buy for myself. I went out myself. I was like 19 years old. Walked into Canadian Tire. Nobody would talk to me because they didn't know what I was talking about. I walked into another hunting store locally here, and they said, come back when you can bring your husband or your dad with you so they can help you make the decision. And that was legitimate what they said to me. Yeah. So the shop that I ended up working at for 5 years in Belleville here, actually, I took my money from those other 2 shops, walked in there, shouldered a gun, and they sold me my first gun. But I mean, you shouldn't have to beg somebody to listen to you or to sell your product. So I mean, a lot of it is, I think it's changing now too, though, because like 10 years ago, it was a lot different. Women are one of the fastest growing, industry changers right now. There's so many women that are joining in hunting and shooting sports and all of the things, the trades even that, they weren't a normal aspect of. It's a huge growing factor. So I think it's a lot more consumer oriented for everyone now than it was even 10 years ago.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that is definitely, it's a good thing. And that's when something I know personally I'd like to see continue to grow, because like you said, if someone is, would like to check out hunting and like to check out archery, and there's some people who are just, that's it, I'm in, here's my credit card, don't tell me what it costs. But most of us aren't like that, right? And so if there is a young woman wanting to get interested in getting into it, and their first couple experiences are negative, are like, oh, well, you know, why don't you just have your boyfriend buy you one or something like that?
Yeah.
That can put them off. Where again, as having 3 daughters, especially, it's, I think as more and more barriers to entry are removed, I think a lot of times, just, you know, typically people think, oh, guys hunt more than women. I think women are naturally almost, it's easier for them to be better hunters than some guys, because guys, we can have our ego get in the way too much, and we have to do this, and oh, I know what I'm doing. And, you know, where there's more patience, I think just naturally sometimes happens in women. And some of the best hunters I know are women.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to say that women are better at anything. That's, you know, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses.
Yep.
I will say that having, you know, been around male teachers and stuff like that in everything that I've ever done, they have always said typically that women are easier learners, not because they're smarter or because they're better at things, because they'll stop and listen a little bit easier. And I mean, even the difference between my son and daughter, you can tell a definite difference between the two. I mean, you tell my son, you know, you have to stop, you have to breathe, you have to anchor properly. Yeah, I got it. My daughter's like, where do I put my nose? How do I hold my string? So it's like, people are all different in general. It's not necessarily a gender-based assumption to make, but that's what I've been told by industry leaders.
Yeah, it's good. So if someone is wanting to get in, whether it's a guy or girl, wanting to get into archery and into hunting, especially bow hunting, what are some of the starting steps that you recommend people take? Because there's so many options now. Like you said, even the last 10 years, products have just come like crazy for women. And man, the options have grown so much and the technology has grown so much. How do you recommend people start?
The best piece of advice that I can give anybody is to, I mean, it's not really something that we can do right now in Ontario because we're kind of locked down and things are changing right now too. Mm-hmm. But in archery, the best way to start on the right foot is going to be to walk into a pro shop, walk into somewhere that has a bow tech on staff. They have a bow press on site so that they can change stuff for you and handle as much as you can. It's one thing to order a bow off you know, a website somewhere, do a YouTube tutorial and set it up yourself. It's something completely different to start off on the right foot with, you know, a general breakdown of how the equipment works, what your form should look like, how it should be set up for you. And I mean, there's so many people that we see come in that, you know, their draw length is way too long or their draw length, is way too short. And it affects your shot process a lot. So, I mean, I get some people that come in, I've been shooting for 3 years and I can't hit, you know, my groups are the size of a dinner plate. What am I doing wrong? And then they're anchoring, you know, back here and the strings back towards their ear. And it's just, they picked up a bow off a shelf somewhere because it was all that they had. And it's affected them ever since. So the best course of action is to head into a bow shop somewhere, figure out, you know, what you like about what bow, what you don't like about another bow so that you can make an educated decision. Asking online is probably the last thing I would recommend doing because there's, you know, you get the fan group that will always tell you to always go with this brand and they'll badmouth every other brand. And then you get the people that are the complete opposite and they're wishy-washy and they're like, oh, anything will do it. You know, and you can pick up anything from anywhere and kill a deer. So you don't have to listen to all these fancy people and shop owners and stuff. So somewhere right in the middle, go in and talk to somebody.
No, that makes sense. It totally does. And that's one of the things I know last year and this year as well. The being able to shoot for me, it's such a relaxing thing. Once you have that experience and get stuff dialed in, for me, it's very therapeutic. And I think a lot of people, even with facing some of the challenges that we are now, if they were able to get into archery and just have that time to focus in on things, I think it'd be really beneficial. Let's say someone has gone into your bow shop, you set them up with a bow, and it's around now, so we're almost coming up to May. I mean, this is going to be Mother's Day week. This will be put in, and they have a goal like, okay, I want to shoot a deer with a bow this fall. What should they do to get comfortable and proficient and confident enough to ethically harvest a deer this fall? What would their course of action would you recommend?
I mean, perfect perfect practice makes perfect. So not practice makes perfect, but you have to be doing it right and consistently in order to be consistent. So the very first bow that I ever got, I got in like August, and I went and shot a deer in October. It was early November, sorry, not October, but it's totally doable. And I mean, I've seen people pick up a bow here for the very first time ever, and their first 3 shots are absolute dead center. So having a decent starting point with, you know, somebody that can coach you through proper form and stuff like that is going to be the most effective way to get consistent quickly. But practice is going to be the most important thing. And then remembering that deer are not stationary paper targets. So you can practice at a target all you want, and it's not going to change the fact that deer drop, deer turn. You know what I mean? Deer are live animals, so they can move and change at any point. Knowing your limitations is another very, very big factor in hunting and archery. Even with guns and crossbows and stuff too, you have to know what you're capable of and what your equipment is capable of.
Yeah, that's excellent. Excellent points, because the deer, they move, and also your heart rate when you see that, when it comes out, all of a sudden you're sitting there quiet and so I'll
tell you, I've been in the presence of some big deer and some big bears and lots of them too, and it does not change the fact that when you're sitting there, I don't care if it's a fawn that steps out, you hear that crunch, crunch, crunch coming through the woods, and your heart drops down into your toes, your whole body starts doing this, and then you see brown walk out, and like I said, it can be a half spotted fawn that walks out, you know, a late season fawn, and you go, oh, it's a deer. So it happens every time for me. But I mean, it's biological. It's not something that you can control, this big buck fever, and big buck fever does not apply solely to bucks. I mean, like I said, I've heard crunch, 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 and I've had a grouse walk out and just completely come unglued because I was so tense, expecting some, you know, giant rack thing to walk out, and just part of it.
Yep, no, absolutely. One of the things I do, well, my day job is I own a gym, a CrossFit gym. And one of the things that I do for myself for getting in hunting shape is I get my heart rate up. And so, and then I practice shooting. I have some targets in my gym with about 20 yards wide. And I found personally, it's amazing how much of it, at first, if I haven't done it for 3 or 4 months, how when my heart's racing, how my sight picture just moving around like that, my arms like that. But after a week or so of practicing, my heart's beating, but just and getting still, how much a difference that has made for me personally. So that's something I recommend to people. If you know, are well, whether you've been hunting 20 years, 40 years, or you're new, get comfortable, get confident with your equipment, like you said, practice perfect. And then, you know, maybe do, 20 jumping jacks. A couple laps around the building, pick up your bow and practice just that calming breath. Because it makes a real difference. For me personally, it's made a real difference. Just, okay, what do I need to do? Again, this is the anchor point. I use a nose button. The Bowmore nose button has helped me personally a lot. It's like, okay,
oh, yes.
It's like, it's touching right there. It's good. Smooth pull through. And it's something that helps me out. The industry, like with COVID and stuff like that, has obviously been dramatically affected. If people are obviously starting out, it's a different thing. You want to go into a pro shop and get things. If someone is, like, I would say I'm an average archer. I'm honest. I mean, I'd like to think I'm an above average one, but that probably means I'm average because, you go goes into play.
We'll have better expectations for ourselves than everyone else does.
I've made amazing shots, and I've also completely just missed everything. This morning. But exactly. What do you recommend? Like it seemed like the last 2 years releases, there's been so many different styles of releases. I mean, there always were, but so many things. What do you recommend for someone who's enjoying, tinkering in the backyard and shooting? When do you typically recommend people change from like a trigger release to a thumb release or hinge release? What are some of the process that you walk people through typically, if you could see them in person?
So I don't have a strong recommendation for people to switch stuff ever. I mean, if it's working for you and you're comfortable and you're consistent, that's the best form of archery that you can practice. So for me, when it comes to new product, if you are, you know, you've been shooting a True Fire Patriot for the last 10 years and you want to upgrade, but you're not sure about the Stand Extinction, or you're not sure about the Spot Hog Wise Guy or the True Ball Execute, and you want to kind of, you want to try them all, but you don't know what to go with, the easiest way to shop is to set a budget and work within it. So, you know, if you walk into a shop and you say, I want to spend no more than $150, but I want a new strap release and I want something that has, you know, a closing dual calibers. Most shops can accommodate you within your budget. So the best thing is to find everything inside of that budget or within a few dollars of that budget, shoot them all, handle them all, figure out what fits for you best. For people that are looking to transition from a wrist strap to a handheld, there's a pretty steep learning curve between, you know, a trigger style release being an index finger release or a thumb button release to a hinge. There's lots of self-taught archers out there that are shooting tensions well, that, you know, they watch Chris V online or they watch Dudley or any of these guys. They're learning proper shot execution, and they're learning how to follow through, and they're learning how to set the click and stuff so that it operates the way that it should. There's also a lot of people that are really messing up themselves mentally because they don't understand the function of the click on a back tension release, or they don't understand why the back tension release should be a surprise shot. So again, always recommend talking to an educated shop representative in some way. There's tons of shops across Canada that have really well-known archers that work for them, work with them, and have been doing it for a number of years, and can usually help kind of pinpoint what you're after and make suggestions on that. But I mean, there's not a band-aid or a cure-all answer for if you're looking to switch from an index finger to go into a tension release. There's not one that I can say you definitely need to shoot. So the other thing too is, I mean, I have fairly small hands. What works for me may not work for you, and what works for both of us may not work for your average archer that have, you know, different hands and setups and stuff. So I actually do operate a release rental program. It's called Release and Return. So basically anything in the store you can rent for a period of 7 days. It costs it costs between $15 and $25. So I have everything in there from strap releases by Scott to Stan strap releases. I've got back tensions by Stan and by Carter. I've got a number of stuff that I can rent out. And basically what I do is, if you purchase something based on your rental, I retain a percentage. So if you spent $20 on it, I retain $10, and then $10 goes towards. Let me pause for just 1 second because there's somebody at my door.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. What about if there was one piece of equipment in the last 3 or 4 years that really jumped out at you, said like, wow, that works surprisingly well, or is really good as making a difference? Does anything come to mind? Something in the last 3 or 4 years that's come out that's like, wow, that.
Absolutely. I would have to say that the Matthews Switch Weight Edition bows have been a game changer for shop owners and for consumers. Myself, for instance, I've always had a really big problem with, you know, each manufacturer having 8 or 9 different bows in 9 or 10 different colors, and then you can customize everything. You got to carry it in 5-pound increment weights, so you get a 60, a 65, a 70, a 75. So it's virtually impossible to appeal to the entire market and have bows in stock and be able to provide timely and efficient service on this stuff. So with the switch weight module system on the Matthews bows now, what I've been able to do is I can stock, you know, one of each color and then a couple of left hands as well, and accommodate anybody in the industry. So the switch weight module goes from 60 pounds all the way up to 75 pounds. They've got 80 and 85% let off, and they all work on a base model bow. So it's been super effective. I think I sold like 120 of them last year, and we're working on accommodating that number again this year. I've been very fortunate working with Matthews and working with the distributor in Canada, because basically when they get bows coming in, they call me and say, hey, this is coming. Do you need anything? And I've been able to keep product in the store. So it's been really nice to be able to accommodate people that way. Because again, you get somebody that orders one off the internet, and I've got every module here in stock. I can just switch module out, ship it, and it's ready to go.
That's cool. Yeah, I've primarily been a bow tech. That's what I shoot now. I've got a Matthews now, and I'm enjoying it. I still like my bow tech a little bit more, but Matthews, I think I shot an older Matthews, and I wasn't a big fan. But the newer models, I think it's 2019 or 2020 I have now. Yeah. It's amazing how much smoother that.
Yeah. And I mean, I was never a Matthews lover previously, so I never stocked Matthews before. I would say before the Triax and the Vertex, I never really brought them in. But this last couple of years, I mean, I'm shooting Matthews this year. I've never shot anything other than Bear and Prime previous to that. I loved my Prime. My Prime was super smooth. I was really, really consistent with it. But this Matthews, the last couple of years, I've been very happy with it. And then for me as well, so I am a left eye dominant right-handed shooter, because I couldn't find a left-handed bow in stock that would accommodate women's specs when I was first buying a bow. So for me to order, a $1,300 or $1,400 bow, it's amazing because I can swap the module out for me, because I have the shortest draw length module in a 50-pound bow, and I can put any module on that, resell my bow to a consumer next year, or to sell it, online used or whatever. So previous to that, I was marketing my stuff basically to female archers that were a little bit more experienced, because I always had to sell a 60-pound bow and there's not very many women out there that can shoot heavier than, say, 55 pounds. Yeah, it's really solved a lot of issues.
Oh, that's cool. I really like innovation like that, where it makes it's so much simpler. I think sometimes people innovate just to make ththings more complicated, and that's just frustrating. But when they simplify it, and it's like, you know what, this works. Yeah, you can shoot a bow in 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I could shoot that bow, and we both still think, wow, this is a great bow. I think that's really fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we really kind of diluted the industry, because we've tried to go with more complicated things, and it's made everything more expensive. It's made everything harder to work on, harder to access. And sometimes going back to basics, or going back to simplicity, as you say. Not that the switch bait module or the Matthews bows are simple, but going back to a more diverse option for people is definitely a little bit more effective.
That's very cool. That's very cool. We chatted before this, because when I invited you to be on this, you're like, saddle hunting, I've never done it before. And I said, don't worry about it. Do you have any questions for me? I'm sure someone's talked to you about saddle hunting, and it seems to be going a lot. Do you have any questions for me about saddle hunting or anything along?
I am actually just learning about saddle hunting. I've had a couple of clients looking for saddles the last year or so, and I was very unfamiliar with it, kind of xenophobic about the whole thing, like, oh, I'm not sure what to do about it. So I just registered an account with Hawk. So I'm going to look at bringing the Hawk line of stuff in. I have more research to do. I am not educated on saddle hunting at all. Other than my customer base, asking me for pricing on stuff and explaining to me that it's really neat. I am actually terrified of heights. I used a climbing stand once, and I was like 7 months pregnant. The base dropped out from underneath my feet. I was terrified, and I never went back up again. It was awful, but it was mostly because I had absolutely no abdominal muscles left at all, so I couldn't get it to work. But the more that I look into saddle hunting, the more that I think it'll literally accommodate most people in the industry as well. Such a diverse option, and easily accessible for everyone as well.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to chat afterwards more about it. That's actually why I got into saddle hunting, is because I had the same thing happen. A self climber, I was going up, and thankfully I was only about 10 feet off the ground at the time, but the bottom fell away, and the knot, the string that was supposed to be tied together, the knot had come undone, and it dropped down, and I was up there, and thankfully, like I said, I own a CrossFit gym. I was able to do kind of like a reverse muscle up and lower myself down, and then only drop a couple feet. But I said, nope, never again. I'm not doing that, because if I was 20 feet up, and it was dark and -5 or -20, this would not have been a good story. So
oh, it would have been terrible. And I'll tell you, I was like sobbing on the phone at 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was, 6 o'clock in the morning to my husband. I'm like, I'm stuck in the tree and I don't know how to get out. So it wasn't fun. No, and like I said, I was pregnant at the time too. So
that would be really crazy. Yeah, well, it's yeah, we'll have to chat and maybe we can swap some information. It's I think it's great what you're doing. Like I said, it's great to see. It's good to see everyone, you know, bringing things forward and treating people so well. And again, your reputation is so well known. But as a dad of 3 daughters, again, it's great to see people who are making it easy for women to enter the sport. Because for me, that's like my daughters. They right now they're not into it. I have the youngest is 13, and oldest is almost 17. And so right now, like they're.
You got another couple of years before boys are not right on the forefront.
It's like sometimes they would and sometimes they wouldn't. They go back and forth. My son is like totally into it. But it's for me, I want them that if they want to follow it through an interest. My middle daughter is kind of interested, but for her, again, it's the bow. It's a bow that's comfortable for her and suits her specs. And so my desire for them is that if they want to pursue it, that it's easy for them to do, that they can go in, they can grab a bow that they like and, oh, maybe not this one, grab this one. Yeah, this feels good. I like this. This is fun. And so I really appreciate people like yourself, again, making it easier for young women who want to get out there and shoot and enjoy the outdoors. Just make it easier for them to get into that. Because I know for me personally, it's my happy place. Like, you know, sitting out there in the woods, hearing the birds and, you know, the turkeys gobble this time of year, the deer walking through, it's great. I just want everyone else to be able to have that opportunity. So again, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your time here today. And, you know, 2020 and 2021 have been pretty crazy, but hopefully the rest of the year just gets better and better for you.
I hope so too. I hope it gets better for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.